I had my belt looped over my wrist and my boarding pass flattened on the gray plastic tray like it was a fragile thing. Shoes off, laptop out, liquids in the little bag. The TSA line moved in that slow, irritated shuffle where everyone pretends not to see anyone else. I was watching the clock above the checkpoint like it could physically push the minutes forward. Because this wasn't a vacation, this was a sprint. My grandfather's probate hearing was that morning in Rio Arriba County. The will, the estate, the part where the court finally puts names next to property and money instead of grief. And my parents had been circling that hearing like vultures ever since the funeral, saying things like, "We'll handle it," and "You'll just complicate everything." They wanted me absent. They wanted me late. They wanted the judge to see an empty chair where my name was supposed to be. The tray slid forward and I stepped toward the metal detector, right when an airport officer moved into my path. Not TSA, not a supervisor in a blue shirt, an airport police officer in a dark uniform with a calm face that didn't belong to a normal travel day. "Ma'am," he said, voice low but firm, "come with us." For half a second, my brain tried to argue with reality. Me? I looked behind me like the words might have been meant for someone else. He didn't move. His partner stepped closer, angled slightly the way people do when they're trained to keep you from bolting without making a scene. My stomach tightened, but my voice stayed level. "What is this about?" I asked. "We need to ask you some questions," he said. "Right now." The line behind me went quiet in that way airports get when the wrong kind of attention lands on one person. I could feel eyes, phones, people deciding what story they were going to tell later. I glanced at my tray. Belt, wallet, boarding pass. My hands suddenly empty in the most vulnerable way. "I have a flight," I said, carefully. "You need to come with us," he repeated. His partner spoke then, softer. "Just bring your ID if you have it." I reached into my carry-on with slow hands and pulled out my driver's license, holding it between two fingers so nobody could claim I reached for anything. They guided me to a small space off to the side. Glass walls, a desk, a chair bolted to the floor. The kind of room designed to make you feel like you already did something wrong. The officer took my ID, looked at it, then looked at me again. "Is your name Nina Holloway?" he asked. "Yes," I said. He nodded once and opened a tablet. The screen glowed against his face as he scrolled. "I'm going to read what we received," he said. "Then you can respond." I didn't interrupt. I didn't plead. I didn't ask him to understand. Because I've learned something about authority. The fastest way to lose is to give them emotion when they're asking for facts. He cleared his throat. "We got a report this morning," he said. "Caller states you're traveling today and maybe a threat." The word threat made the room tilt. "A threat to who?" I asked. He glanced down. "To the public," he said, and kept reading. "Caller states you made statements about making them pay, and that you might attempt to cause an incident at the airport." My skin went cold, not because the accusation made sense, because I knew exactly who would use that language. My father loved vague words that sounded serious and couldn't be disproven in a sentence. Unstable, dangerous, threat. Words that give institutions permission to slow you down. I kept my face still. "Who made the report?" I asked. The officer hesitated, just long enough for me to know the name would matter. "I'm not going to discuss that yet," he said. His partner watched me closely like she expected a meltdown, like she'd been told to expect one. I didn't give her that. Instead, I said, "I'm traveling to a probate hearing for my grandfather's estate." The officer's eyes flicked up. "Probate," he repeated. "Yes," I said. "If I miss it, my parents get what they want." He didn't react to that, but his partner's expression tightened slightly like she'd heard this story before in different clothes. The officer scrolled again. "The caller claims you recently made concerning emergency calls and that you've been reported before." I felt my pulse shift, slow and heavy. Emergency calls. That was the tell. My parents didn't just want me delayed. They wanted a record that could follow me into a courtroom. Unstable daughter, questionable behavior, safety risk. If they could plant that now, they could walk into probate court later, looking like the responsible ones. I leaned forward slightly, hands visible on my knees. Officer, I said, calm, pull the emergency call log, right now. He blinked once. What? Pull the emergency call log tied to this report, I repeated. The original call that triggered this. The actual caller information and the recording, not a summary. His partner frowned. Ma'am, that's not always. It will be there, I said, cutting her off without raising my voice. Because whoever did this is counting on you not checking. The officer studied me for a beat, then tapped his screen and shifted his grip like he'd decided to test me. All right, he said. Let's see. He opened a different panel. Incident details, dispatch notes, call history. I watched his face as he read. At first he looked neutral. Then his eyes paused. His thumb stopped moving. His tone changed, not dramatic, just sharper, more careful. He looked at his partner and angled the tablet slightly away from me like he didn't want the lobby cameras catching the next part if the glass reflected it. What? She asked quietly. He didn't answer her right. Away. He stared at the line on the screen again, like he wanted it to be something else. Then he looked back at me. Ms. Holloway, he said slowly, you said your parents want you to miss a probate hearing. Yes, I said. That's the point. He swallowed once and glanced down again. Because the call log, he said, voice low, lists the reporting party by name. He lifted his eyes to mine. And it lists your father, Grant Holloway, as the caller. The moment he said my father's name out loud, the room went sharper around the edges. It wasn't just embarrassment. It was the sound of a system realizing it had been used. Officer Delaney, his name tag finally visible now that I was close enough, looked back down at the tablet like he expected the screen to correct itself. It didn't. His partner, Officer Singh, leaned in and read the line for herself. Her mouth tightened. Grant Holloway, she repeated quietly. Relationship listed as father. Delaney's jaw flexed once. Ms. Holloway, he said, have you had any prior incidents at the airport? No, I answered. None. Any restraining orders, protective orders, pending charges? Singh asked. No, I said again. Delaney tapped a different tab. He also claimed you made specific threats, he said. He used the phrase, she said she'd make us pay. I didn't laugh. I didn't roll my eyes. I kept it clean. My grandfather died, I said. My parents want control of his estate. They threatened me all week that if I made trouble, they'd handle it. This is what handling it looks like. Singh's gaze stayed on me, steady. Where is your hearing? She asked. Rio Arriba County Probate Court, I said. This morning. Delaney glanced at the clock on the wall. Your flight? He asked. Boarding soon, I said. If I miss it, I'm not there when the judge calls the case. Delaney exhaled, through his nose, and finally did what I'd asked him to do in the first place. He opened the call record itself. A new panel appeared with a timestamp, a dispatch ID, and a button marked Play Audio. He hesitated. Not because he didn't want to hear it, because he understood that once he heard it, it would become evidence of my father's attempt to weaponize them. Delaney pressed play. My father's voice filled the small room. Too clear, too confident, pretending to be worried. This is Grant Holloway, he said. I'm calling because my daughter is flying today and I'm afraid she's going to do something. She's been unstable. She's made comments about making people pay. I'm scared for the public. Singh's eyes didn't blink. Delaney's expression stayed controlled, but I saw his shoulders tighten. The recording continued. She's going to probate court today, my father added, like he was providing helpful context. She's upset about the inheritance. She's not thinking rationally. Delaney paused the audio. The silence after my father's voice was loud. Singh spoke first. He included the word probate, she said flatly. Delaney nodded, jaw tight. And he framed it like she's a threat because she wants to attend a hearing, he murmured. I kept my hands visible and my voice level. He's trying to create a record, I said. So the judge sees me as unstable if I show up late or not at all. Delaney looked at Singh. Singh nodded once. Okay, Delaney said. We're going to do a few things. We're going to document that the call appears retaliatory and connected to a civil matter. And we're going to run a quick check to confirm there's nothing else attached to your name. Do it, I said. Singh stepped out briefly and returned with a form. This is a voluntary statement, she said. Short. Facts only. I wrote, I was stopped at security based on a report made by my father, Grant Holloway. I deny making threats. I believe the report was filed to interfere with my travel to a probate hearing in Rio Arriba County. I request preservation of the call audio and logs. Delaney scanned it, then tapped on his tablet again. Ms. Holloway, he said, the call also includes an allegation that you made concerning emergency calls. You said to pull the emergency call log. We did. There's only one relevant call linked to this report. He paused, then said something that made the room tilt again. It wasn't the first call today, he said. It was the third. Singh's head lifted. 3 calls from the same number, she said, reading over his shoulder. 2 earlier calls were dropped before dispatch answered. My mouth went dry, because that meant my father had called twice, hung up, and called again, like he was rehearsing the lie until he got someone who would take it seriously. Delaney's voice stayed controlled. That matters, he said, because it suggests intent. He stood, opened the door, and spoke to a TSA supervisor outside in a low voice. I caught fragments. Probate. Father. Retaliatory. No criminal indicators. Then Delaney came back in and said, We're going to let you continue to your gate. A pulse of relief hit my chest, but I didn't show it. Not yet. Thank you, I said. Singh held up one finger. Not finished, she said. We're also going to give you a case incident number for this stop. If your parents try to repeat this, you can reference it. Delaney printed a small receipt-like slip, tore it off, and slid it across the desk. Keep this, he said. It shows we identified the reporting party and reviewed the audio. If anyone later claims you were detained for violent behavior, this document contradicts that. I stared at the number on the slip and felt something settle into place. This wasn't just me escaping their trap. This was me collecting proof that they tried to build it. Then Singh glanced at Delaney's screen again and her expression tightened. Wait, she said. There's a note attached from the reporting party. Delaney scrolled. He added a follow-up, he said. He read silently for a second, then looked up at me with a different kind of caution. Ms. Holloway, he said, your father told dispatch you might be carrying documents related to the probate hearing and that you might destroy them if confronted. My stomach went cold, because my father wasn't just trying to stop me from traveling. He was trying to make the police think I was dangerous specifically to justify searching my bag and taking whatever paperwork I had. I leaned forward, voice still calm. I'm carrying one thing, I said. A copy of my grandfather's emergency call log from the night he died. Singh's eyes sharpened. Emergency call log? She repeated. Yes, I said. My father doesn't want it in court. Delaney's posture changed slightly. Ms. Holloway, he said, why would a probate hearing hinge on an emergency call log from the night your grandfather died? I met his eyes and answered with the only truth that mattered. Because my parents told the court my grandfather was confused and coerced when he changed his will, I said. And that call log proves who was actually with him and who wasn't. I didn't waste the officer's time with a speech. I slid my boarding pass receipt into my wallet, tucked the incident slip into the back of my phone case, and stood the way you stand when you're trying to look ordinary while your life is burning quietly. Officer Delaney opened the door first. You're clear to continue, he said. We'll walk you back to the checkpoint. The word walk mattered. Not because I needed an escort, because it meant 2 uniforms would be visible while I moved. It meant my father couldn't later claim I fled or acted erratic in public. Officer Singh matched my pace, eyes forward. You said you're carrying a call log from the night your grandfather died, she said. Yes, I replied. A CAD printout and the dispatch summary. Delaney glanced back. Why do you have it? He asked. Because my parents filed in probate saying he wasn't lucid when he changed his will, I said. They're claiming he was confused and manipulated. Singh's gaze sharpened. And the call log contradicts that, she said. It contradicts who was with him, I answered. It contradicts who didn't show up until it was convenient. And it documents something the court hasn't seen yet. Delaney didn't press for details. He just nodded once, like he'd decided my story had structure. We reached the conveyor where my tray had been pulled aside. My belt was still there, my boarding pass still flat like a little white joke. A TSA. Supervisor stepped up, listened to Delaney for 10 seconds, then nodded and waved me through with minimal fuss. I put my shoes on with hands that stayed steady, because that's the part my parents never understood. Calm isn't weakness. Calm is control. As soon as I cleared the checkpoint, I checked the departures board. My gait had changed. Of course it had. I moved fast without running, weaving through rolling suitcases and perfume kiosks, heart doing its own private sprint. I kept my eyes on the signs and my mind on one thing: get on the plane, then deal with the rest. Halfway there, my phone buzzed. An email from the airline. Your itinerary has been updated. My stomach tightened. Then another buzz. Your flight has been canceled. I stopped walking so abruptly a man behind me bumped my shoulder. Canceled. I opened the email and felt my throat go dry as I read the reason line. Canceled per customer request. Customer request. Not weather, not maintenance, not a gate change. A request. I didn't call the airline hotline. Hotlines eat time. I went straight to the nearest service desk, set my ID on the counter, and kept my voice level. My flight was canceled minutes before boarding, I said. I did not request that. The agent looked tired until he saw the timestamp. Then his eyes sharpened. Let me pull it up, he said. He typed, clicked, then frowned at the screen. I'm seeing a cancellation, he said slowly. It was requested by someone who answered your security question. My pulse dropped into my hands. I didn't give anyone my security answers, I said. He glanced up at me, uncertain. Do you have an authorized traveler on your profile? He asked. No, I said. Absolutely not. He clicked again. They called in, he said. They had your confirmation code. Of course they did. My parents never stole with crowbars, they stole with access. I leaned forward slightly. Can you see the number that called? I asked. He hesitated. We don't always. Please, I said, cutting through gently. This is interference with a court hearing. I was just stopped by airport police because of a false report filed by my father. I have an incident number. The agent's expression shifted at the word police. I pulled the slip from my phone case and slid it across the counter like a key. He read it, then looked back at his screen with a different kind of seriousness. I can see the caller ID, he said. It's logged in the notes. He paused, then read it out loud. Caller identified himself as Grant Holloway. My jaw tightened. I didn't react big. I didn't give the universe the satisfaction. Did he say why he canceled my ticket? I asked. The agent scrolled. He said you're not well and that you're not safe to travel alone, he read. He asked us to stop you from getting on the plane. I exhaled slowly through my nose. There it was again, same language, different institution. My father trying to turn concern into handcuffs. I need you to reverse it, I said, and I need the notes printed. The agent's fingers hovered. Reversing it depends on the seat availability, he said. I can pay for a new ticket, I replied. I just need to get there. He clicked. The screen refreshed. Then he said, You're lucky. There's one seat still open. Lucky wasn't the word. My father had aimed for delay, not certainty. He wanted me sweating at the edge of the gate, not calmly seated in a plane with proof in my pocket. The agent printed a new boarding pass and slid it to me. Then he printed the internal notes, one thin sheet with a timestamp, a call record, and my father's name typed neatly in a field that made it look official. Keep that, he said quietly. If he does it again, tell them to flag your profile for in-person verification only. I will, I said. He lowered his voice. Ma'am, I'm sorry, he added. And it wasn't pity, it was recognition. I didn't thank him twice. I didn't linger. I walked fast toward the gate with the new boarding pass in my hand and a second piece of paper that proved my father wasn't worried about my safety. He was worried about my presence. At the gate, boarding had already started. The scanner beeped when I handed my pass over. Green, the simplest color in the world, and it felt like oxygen. I stepped onto the jet bridge and didn't look back. Once I was in my seat, I finally allowed myself one private second of shaking, just in my fingers. Then I forced them still. I opened my folder and checked that the call log packet was still there, corners crisp, like it wanted to be read by someone who matters. Then my phone buzzed again. A text from my mother. We know you're trying to stir things up. Turn around. You'll regret it. I didn't respond. Another buzz. An email from a court notification system I hadn't subscribed to. Notice of hearing update. Estate of Harold M. Holloway. My stomach tightened as I opened it. The hearing time had been moved. Earlier, by 2 hours. My parents weren't just trying to keep me off a plane anymore. They were trying to make sure that even if I landed, I would land too late. The plane pushed back from the gate. As the engines rolled up, I stared at the notification and did the only thing left that still lived inside my control. I called the probate clerk's office. It rang twice before a woman answered, brisk and tired. Rio Arriba County Probate, she said. My name is Nina Holloway, I said, voice steady. I'm a beneficiary in the estate hearing today. I just received a notice the hearing was moved earlier. I'm currently in transit due to interference, and I need to confirm whether the court will allow remote appearance or hold the matter until I arrive. There was a pause as she typed. Then her tone changed, slightly, less routine. Miss Holloway, she said carefully, the time change was requested this morning as an emergency accommodation. By who? I asked. She didn't answer immediately. Her fingers kept tapping. Then she said, it was requested by counsel for Grant and Linda Holloway. My chest went cold, because the pattern was now complete. Airport police report, airline cancellation, hearing moved earlier, 3 systems, 1 goal. I kept my voice low. Has the court granted anything yet? I asked. The clerk hesitated. Ms. Holloway, she said, your parents' attorney also filed a motion to proceed without you based on a claim that you were detained by airport police for threat-related behavior. I stared out the airplane window as the runway blurred into motion. Because I wasn't just late anymore. I was being written out in real time. By the time the plane leveled off, my hands were steady again. Not because I felt safe, because I knew exactly what my parents were doing. They were building a paper version of me that didn't exist, then walking it into court like it was fact. I paid for the in-flight Wi-Fi before the seatbelt light even turned off. The connection stuttered, then caught. My phone lit up with notifications I didn't open yet. I stayed on the one thread that mattered, the probate clerk. Ma'am, she had said, your parents' attorney filed a motion to proceed without you based on a claim you were detained for threat-related behavior. I pressed my call button again. Rio Arriba County Probate. She answered, same brisk voice. This is Nina Holloway, I said. I need an email address for emergency filings or supplemental exhibits. I have documentation that contradicts the claim in that motion. There was a pause, keys tapping. We don't accept filings by email, she said automatically. I understand, I replied. I'm not asking you to file it for me. I'm asking where I can send supporting documents for the judge to review in chambers, because the motion contains a factual misrepresentation that is being used to deprive me of my right to appear. Another pause. Her tone shifted a fraction. Less script, more human. Are you represented? She asked. Yes, I said. My grandfather's counsel is listed on the case, Elliot Lane. She typed again. Mr. Lane is on today's docket, she said. He's in the building. Then please note this, I said, voice controlled. I was stopped at airport security because my father filed a report. Airport police identified him as the caller. I was not detained for threat behavior. I was cleared. I have an incident number and a printed airline record showing my father also canceled my flight by calling customer service and claiming I was unstable. The clerk went quiet for a beat. Do you have those documents in hand? She asked. Yes, I said. All right, she said, slowly. You can send them to the clerk's secure exhibit inbox for judge review. It is not a formal filing, but it will be associated with your case for today's hearing. She read out an address letter by letter. I repeated it back, then hung up and immediately started building the cleanest package of proof I'd ever assembled. I opened a new email. Subject line: Estate of Harold M. Holloway. Supplement our false detention claim. No emotion, no adjectives. I attached 3 things. 1, a photo of the airport incident slip with the number clear and my name legible. 2, the airline service desk printout showing caller identified as Grant Holloway and the note about not safe to travel alone. 3, screenshots of my mother's texts, threatening to label me unstable and push a guardianship hold. Then I wrote 5 sentences, each one a brick. I deny any threats or criminal conduct. Airport police stop was initiated by false report from Grant Holloway. Officers identified him via call log and audio. I was cleared and released to travel. My flight was canceled minutes before boarding by Grant Holloway, impersonating authorized access to my reservation. Airline printed internal notes. The motion to proceed without me relies on false statements, and I request the court allow remote appearance or continue the hearing until I arrive. I sent it. The Wi-Fi wheel spun long enough to make my palms damp, then the message whooshed into sent, and I felt something settle, not victory. Leverage. Next, I called Elliot Lane. He answered on the first ring, voice low like he was already standing in a courthouse hallway. Nina, he said, no greeting fluff. I got your text. Tell me where you are. On the plane, I said. They moved the hearing earlier and filed a motion claiming I was detained for threat behavior. A pause. I heard paper shuffle. I just saw it, he said. They filed it with a declaration from their attorney's office, no police report attached. Because there isn't one, I said. I know, he replied, and his tone sharpened into something colder. Did you send proof? Yes, I said. To the clerk's secure exhibit inbox. Airport incident number, airline printout, and my mother's text threatening guardianship. Good, he said. I'm walking into the courtroom now. Stay reachable. My throat tightened. Can the judge let me appear remotely? I asked. Lane exhaled. He can, he said. He doesn't have to. But when a party's absence is caused by the opposing party's interference, judges don't like being used. Used. That word made my heart slow. Because that was exactly what this was. My parents didn't just want the estate. They wanted the court's authority to back their story. Listen, Lane said, voice dropping. They're also asking to be appointed temporary personal representatives today. They're framing it as urgent administration because you're unstable. My jaw tightened. So they can control the assets immediately, I said. Exactly, right, he replied. And they want the judge to sign it without you present. I stared at the tray table in front of me, smooth plastic, harmless, and felt the same cold clarity I'd felt at security. Stop it, I said. I intend to, he replied. But I need one more thing from you. The emergency call log you mentioned. Do you have it with you? Yes, I said. Printed. Good, he said, because their entire capacity argument is built on the claim your grandfather was confused and easily influenced. If that log shows he was coherent and who was with him, it matters. I didn't tell Lane the part my parents didn't know yet, that the call log wasn't just a timestamp. It was a story in boxes. Caller name, caller number, location, notes typed by a dispatcher who didn't care about family politics. And one line in those notes had been haunting me since I read it the first time. I kept my voice calm. I can take photos and send it, I said. Do it now, he replied, before we go on record. I pulled the packet from my folder and flattened it on the tray table. My hands didn't shake. I took photos page by page, making sure the case number and the timestamp were clear. Then I sent them in another email to the clerk inbox and copied Lane. 2 minutes later, my phone buzzed. A reply from the clerk. No greeting, no sympathy. Just one sentence that changed the air in my chest. The judge has reviewed your exhibits and is considering the motion at the start of the hearing. Please remain available by phone. I stared at that line until it felt real. Then my phone buzzed again. This time it was Lane, and his voice was different. Lower, tighter, like the room around him had just turned quiet. Nina, he said, your father just stood up and told the judge you were removed from security and handcuffs. I felt my pulse hit my fingertips. Tell the judge the truth, I said. I am, Lane replied. But wait. I heard muffled courtroom sound through his phone. A chair scrape, a cough, the faint echo of a judge speaking. Then Lane said, very softly, the judge just asked the clerk to read the airport incident number into the record. My breath caught, because my father had tried to plant a story, and now the court was about to read my proof out loud. I stayed on the line with Elliot Lane while the judge called the courtroom to order. I couldn't hear every word, but I could hear enough to understand when the atmosphere changed. The murmur quieted. Chairs stopped shifting. Someone coughed and then immediately regretted it. Lane whispered, he's looking at the exhibits. My parents had expected an empty seat. They'd expected to speak into silence to let their attorney paint me as unstable and absent and therefore irrelevant. Instead, I was a voice in the judge's ear through a phone, and my proof was sitting in the court system like a weight no one could pretend not to feel. I heard the judge's voice, older, flat, not unkind. Counsel, he said, I'm looking at a supplemental exhibit containing an airport incident number. I'm also looking at airline notes identifying the caller as Grant Holloway. A beat of silence. Then my father's voice rose. Too fast, too defensive. That's just what she wants you to believe, he said. She's manipulative. The judge didn't take the bait. Mr. Holloway, he said evenly, you are not under oath right now, but you are in a court of record. Choose your words carefully. Lane's breathing was controlled, but I could hear the slight edge of satisfaction in it. He whispered, he's irritated. Good, because irritation is the first crack in arrogance. The judge continued, I have an airport police incident slip here. It indicates Ms. Holloway was stopped, identified, and cleared to proceed. No arrest, no handcuffs, no detention for threats. Another pause. I pictured my father standing in his expensive suit, mouth tightening as the system refused to carry his lie. My mother, probably with her hands folded like prayer, ready to cry on command. And the attorney, ready to pivot. The judge's voice sharpened slightly. Now, he said, I also have a statement from the reporting party's attorney claiming Ms. Holloway was removed from security in handcuffs. That statement appears false. Lane whispered, almost too low to hear. He's looking at their motion. My father tried again. Your Honor, she's unstable. The judge cut him off. Mr. Holloway, you do not get to diagnose your daughter as a strategy. Silence again. Then the judge said, Counsel for Grant and Linda Holloway, do you maintain this motion? Their attorney spoke smooth. Your Honor, we filed in good faith based on information provided to our office. Information provided by whom? The judge asked. The attorney hesitated for a fraction of a second. By our clients, Your Honor. And your clients, the judge said, appear to have initiated an airport police report and then contacted an airline to cancel Ms. Holloway's travel based on claims she was not safe to fly. Lane whispered, he's reading the airline note verbatim. My father's voice rose, almost offended. We were trying to protect the public. The judge's tone went colder. Protect the public from what exactly? He asked. A probate hearing? That line landed like a slap. Because the judge didn't need my emotions. He had their timeline. The court clerk read into the record the incident number, the time of the call, and the name of the reporting party. I heard the clerk say, clearly, Grant Holloway, and it sounded different in a courtroom than it did in a bank or an airport. In court, names become facts. Lane whispered, "He's not happy." Then the judge said the sentence my parents had been trying to prevent all morning. "Ms. Holloway," he said, "are you present by phone?" Lane held the phone closer. "Yes, Your Honor," I said, voice steady. "I'm on an aircraft in transit due to the interference described in my exhibits. I am available for testimony and I request to be heard." The judge paused. "You are heard," he said. My chest tightened with something hot and unfamiliar. Not victory. Relief that the room was finally required to treat me like a person. The judge addressed the courtroom again. "Given the credible evidence of interference, Ibisha," he said, "I am denying the motion to proceed without Ms. Holloway." I heard my mother make a small sound, either a gasp or a performative sob. The judge continued, "I am also denying the request for temporary appointment as personal representatives at this time." Lane whispered, "There it is." My father tried one last time. "Your Honor, the estate needs someone responsible." The judge cut him off without raising his voice. "Mr. Holloway," he said, "the responsible thing would have been to allow the hearing to proceed fairly. Instead, it appears you attempted to create an absence and then weaponize it." Another pause. Then the judge said, "I am continuing this hearing to allow Ms. Holloway to appear in person. We will reconvene tomorrow morning at 9. If Ms. Holloway arrives sooner, we can address scheduling, but I will not reward obstruction." Lane exhaled quietly. The judge wasn't done. "I am directing counsel to provide any communications and records related to the airport report and airline cancellation," he said. "Failure to do so may result in sanctions. Additionally, I am referring the conduct described to the appropriate authorities for review." My throat went dry. Referral, sanctions, review, the language of consequences. The judge's voice stayed flat as he concluded, "Court is adjourned." Lane pulled the phone away from the courtroom sound and spoke softly, almost like he didn't want to spook the moment. "Nina," he said, "you're going to land, you're going to sleep, and tomorrow you're going to walk into that courtroom with your head up." "What about my parents?" I asked. Lane didn't dramatize it. He just said, "They made this bigger than inheritance." When the call ended, I sat back in my seat and stared at the folder on my tray table. My parents had tried to stop me with uniforms and cancellations and motions. They'd tried to make me look like a threat so the court would rush past me. Instead, the court slowed down and wrote their names into the record. And for the first time since my grandfather died, the most powerful thing in the room wasn't my father's voice. It was the log. After I landed, I slept with the folder on the nightstand like it could grow legs. The next morning, I walked into Rio Arriba County Probate with my attorney beside me and the airport incident slip in my pocket. The judge started by stating one thing on the record: no more emergency accommodations requested by my parents without notice to both sides. Then he opened my grandfather's file, looked at the signature page, and said, "Ms. Holloway is a named beneficiary. We will proceed accordingly. If you made it to the end, tell me this in the comments. Would you have gotten on that plane anyway, or would you have turned back? And what would you do next if your own parents tried to erase you from court like that?" If you want more stories like this, hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. See you in the next video.